Hello everyone, Prophet Daniel from South Africa. Welcome back to YouTube. I'm going to do today a recording of what I discovered, what happened during the Last Supper. And by describing it to you and by going through it for you, you will see how a lot of things were taken away and certain things were added to it to calcify the truth which actually was there. And ceremonialism came into play and deviated us from the truth. So we're going to talk about the Last Supper, how it started, how Jesus spoke to the apostles preparing for it, knowing for a fact that Judas is going to go and betray him, which he did, and how he worked it and how he structured it, that it actually will happen with the ones who really loved him and believed in him and trusted him, and how he implemented the parable of brotherhood, how Judas left, and when he left, why he left, and how he implemented the cup of remembrance and the bread of remembrance. It's totally different for what has been written. And this will definitely open your eyes and you will understand a lot. And you will see how the dogma and the indoctrination from many men of God, women of God, or Christian groups or occultic groups came and influenced us in such a way that we couldn't get to the truth, but we know it's out there, but you couldn't touch it, couldn't see it. Hopefully this will open your eyes, and I believe it's going to open your eyes, and it's going to help you to understand a lot. I did a few short clips on TikTok. I will do it now on YouTube. I'm doing it now as we speak, and enjoy it. After this description of what happened, I will also do another recording of why Judas decided to do what he did, and that the devil, Satan, Lucifer, they never had anything to do with it. Not a grain of sand to do with it. But it did please them what was happening, the betrayal from Judas, handing Jesus over to the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who really hated him because he spoke the truth and he nullified them. We can go through that as well. I'll do recordings of all of this and what he said during it. Right, let's start. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him. So he spoke to Andrew and he spoke to the young man John. Not John the apostle. There was another young gentleman, John Marks, who was always with them. And he was basically a runner at that time between them and their families. Whenever they needed money, Jesus will speak to Andrew. Andrew will speak to John. John will go off and he will go speak to the family, or he will give them news where they are, what they've done, are they still good, what area are they, and he will take money and bring it back to the apostles, to Jesus and them, so that they can utilize it for wherever they go, place to sleep, buying food and all those things. So Jesus and Andrew spoke to John, and they arranged with their parents that they will have the Last Supper one night before Passover in the upper room where it was closed. No one can hear them, no one can see what was going on in there, and it was safe. Jesus really wanted this Last Supper because he wanted to institute the parable of brotherhood. So Judas didn't know what was going on. He knew something was happening, but he couldn't put his finger on it. And the night before, Jesus walked with him towards John Marks' parents' place, and he called the 12 apostles and he said to them, "Come, let's go." And they walked with him, they followed. Judas didn't know what was happening. And on the way there, Andrew went to Judas and he took the bag from him. Now the bag is basically where all the money and everything was in. They had to sustain them, to help them, to pay the way, you know. Things weren't free even then. Even today, things are not for free. You need money to go and do things. But he took the bag away from Judas. Jesus instructed him to do that. So they went to the house. They greeted John Mark's parents. And Jesus spoke to them and said to the apostles, okay, go upstairs. We are going to have the Last Supper. Obviously, one or two of them knew, but it was kind of a shock to Judas when he heard it. So they all went up to the upper room, and they got into the upper room, and they all stood there looking at each other. Now, it's a custom when you go for the Last Supper or the Passover supper that there will be slaves, people who will wash your feet, and they will clean your feet, and they will show you where to go sit. And when the host comes, he will sit where his place is, and the whole ritual or the whole supper, Passover supper, will start happening, which they performed that time. Now when they went up into the room, the apostles asked each other, who will wash our feet? Because there were no slaves there. They were standing there and they were talking to each other, they were looking at each other, they saw the bowls there, they saw the water there, but they still asked each other, who's going to wash our feet? You know, do you see the arrogance, a little bit of arrogance, or like the importance, you know, the importance of them being the apostles of Jesus. They even argued about who's going to sit where on the table. They were talking to each other and they decided this, that, this way, that way. They were really quabbling with each other. And Judas took the seat on the left of Jesus, Joshua. And John, the young apostle, sat on the right. And he said, no, Jesus loves me. Which is true, but he loved them all the same. But remember one thing, that John the apostle was a young boy. I think he was in the region of about 15 years old. And he still had a lot to learn. And he was very spontaneous about a lot of things. You know, when he heard something, he will go and talk about it. And Jesus had to refrain him a lot of times from going out and just talk about things where he was supposed to keep it between them and just learn and observe. Now when Jesus entered the room, he looked at them and he sat down. And after the wine and water was mixed, Third brought the cup to Jesus and he gave thanks. Then he said, divide this cup among yourselves. When you partake of it, realize that I will not again drink with you the fruit of the vine, since this is our last supper. When we sit down in this manner again, it will be in the kingdom to come. Now, Jesus knew that Judas made up his mind to deliver him into the hands of the enemies tonight. He knew that. And he fully realizes that this treacherous betrayal was the work of Judas, but that it also pleased Lucifer and Satan, Calagustia, the devil, the prince of darkness, the fallen prince now. But he feared none of those who sought his spiritual overthrow, any more than he feared those who sought to accomplish his physical death, which is the Sanhedrin, which is the Pharisees, and which is the Sadducees. But Jesus had one anxiety. He was very scared and he wasn't happy. And that was the safety and salvation of his chosen followers. Now with his full knowledge that the Father had put all things under his authority, he prepared to enact the parable of brotherly love, the washing of the feet. You know, after the first cup of the Passover, it was a Jewish custom for the host to arise from the table and to wash his hands. And later in the meal, after the second cup, all the guests likewise will rise up and wash their hands. Since the apostles knew that the Master did not follow this ceremonial hand washing, they were very curious to know what he intended to do. And after the first cup, the Master silently rose and moved towards the door, removing his cloak, and girded himself with a towel and poured water into one of the foot basins. You know, we must imagine now the faces of all of them and the amazement and astonishment of these 12 men who so recently refused to wash each other's feet and had engaged in such unseemly disputes about positions of honor at the table, when they saw him, went around the table to the lowest seat, kneeling down with an attitude of a servant, making ready to wash Simon Peter's feet. They all rose as one man to their feet. They were so shocked, they just all stood up. They were totally out of their skin. Now Peter, Simon Peter, you must know this, that he was the first human to believe in the divinity of Jesus, Joshua, and to make a full and public confession about it. To everyone, he went out and he spoke to the people and he was telling them, this is the Son of God. Since then, he never doubted the nature of the Master. Now the same Master is kneeling at his feet, about to wash them like a slave. Peter regarded Jesus as worthy of great honor and respect, and honored Jesus in his heart. It was not strange at all that his soul resented the thought of Jesus kneeling before him in an attitude of a menial servant and proposing to wash his feet as a slave would. He was like really shocked. He didn't want that to happen because he knew who Jesus was, the Son of God. And Peter said then, Master, do you really want to wash my feet? He asked. Jesus just looked up and said, you may not fully understand what I'm about to do, but hereafter you will know the meaning of all these things. Peter did not want Jesus to wash his feet. He was adamant that it won't be so. But Jesus said to him, if you don't allow me to do so, you will have no part in what I'm about to perform. Then Peter said in an impetuous manner, then wash not my feet, but wash my head and my hands as well. Jesus, as he was about to wash his feet, said, who is already clean needs only to wash his feet. And you who sit with me tonight are clean, but not all. That like shocked. The amazement just came over his face. I will perform the service to you as a parable to illustrate the meaning of the new commandment, which I will presently give you. In a like manner, the Master went around the table washing the apostles' feet without saying a word. He did not even pass Judas. When done, he donned his cloak and returned to his place as the host, looking at his bewildered apostles and said, you call me Master, and you say, well, for I am. If then the Master has washed your feet, why was it that you were unwilling to wash one another's feet? He asked them. What lesson should you learn from this parable, which the Master so willingly does, that service, which his brethren were unwilling to do for one another? And then he said these famous words, verily, verily, I say unto you, a servant is not greater than his master, neither is the one who is sent greater than the one who sends him. You have seen the way of service in my life among you, and blessed are you who will have the great courageous courage to serve. But you are so slow to learn that the secret of greatness in the kingdom is not like the methods of power in the material world. When I came to the chamber tonight, you were not content, proudly refused to wash one another's feet, but you also fell into dispute among yourselves to who would sit and who should have the place of honor at the table. Such honor the Pharisees and the children of the world seek. But it should not be among the ambassadors of the heavenly kingdom. Do you not know that there can be no place of preferment at my table? Do you not understand that I have loved each of you as I do the other? I love you all the same. Do you not know that the place nearest of me, as men regard such honor, can mean nothing concern your standing in the kingdom of heaven? Jesus said, the one who sits next to me is not more important than one who's far away from me. He also said that it's known that the kings of the Gentiles have lordship over them. Those who exercise authority are sometimes called benefactors. And he said, it is known here that he who meets is greater than one who serves. And he said that in the kingdom, it shall not be so. He who is great among us, let him become the younger. Let the one who are chief among you become the one who serves. Jesus said, but you will observe that I am among you as the one who serves. He said that if you are willing to become fellow servants with me in doing the Father's will in the kingdom to come, you shall sit with me in power, still doing the Father's will in future glory. Now, the following which I will describe in that will be the last words to the betrayer, Judas himself. During the course of the second meal, the second cup, Jesus looked at them and said, I've told you how much I desire to have the supper with you. And knowing how the evil forces of darkness have conspired to bring the death of the Son of Man, I'm determined to eat this with you in the secret chamber. I am determined to eat this with you in the secret chamber. And a day in advance of the Passover, since I will not be with you this time tomorrow night, I have repeatedly told you that I must return to the Father. Now the hour has come. But it was not required that one of you should betray me to the hands of the enemies. You know, they were shocked. They have not even recovered from the shock having their feet washed by the Master and the parable of it. And this happens. They looked at each other and hesitantly inquired, Is it I? Is it I? When also has inquired, Jesus said, Well, it's necessary that I go to the Father. It was not required that one of you become a traitor to fulfill the Father's will. You know, Jesus was doing it out of free will anyway. He didn't need anybody to go and interfere to let the Father's will be. He did it out of free will. This is the coming to fruit of the concealed evil in the heart of one who failed to love the truth with his whole soul. This is what's happening to people today. Listen to these words, what I've just said. This is the coming to fruit of the concealed evil in the heart of one who failed to love the truth with his whole soul. How deceitful is the intellectual pride that precedes the spiritual downfall. My friend of many years, who even eats my bread, will betray me, even as he now dips his hand with me in the dish. They all began to ask again, Is it I? As Judas, sitting on the left of the Master, again asked, Is it I? Jesus, dipping the bread into the dish of herbs, handed it to Judas, saying, You have said. But the others did not hear what Jesus said to Judas. They didn't hear a word. John, who reclined on Jesus' right hand, leaned over and asked the Master, Who is it? We should know who is it that has proved untrue to his trust. Jesus answered, Already I have told you, even he to whom I gave the soup. Right? He gave the bowl to Judas. But it's natural for the host to give the soup to the one who sits next to him on the left. That's how they do it. That none of them took notice of this in their thoughts when they were angry, when they were shocked, even though the Master had plainly spoken. But Judas was painfully conscious. He was painfully conscious of the meaning of the Master's words, associated with this act, and became very fearful lest his brethren were likewise now aware that he was the betrayer. You see what fear does? Simon Peter, you know, he was a fisherman, he had a temper, he was quick to move forward and do things, he didn't take nonsense, highly excited by what has been said, and leaning forward over the table, he addressed John, he asked John, and he asked him, who is it? Or If he has told you, tell me who is the betrayer. I have told you of this, Jesus said, because I desire that you should recall, after I have gone, that I knew about these evil plottings, and that I forewarned you about my betrayal. And I do all of this only that you may be strengthened for the temptations and the trials which are just ahead. You know, when Jesus spoke, he leaned over towards Judas and said, what you have decided to do, do quickly. When Judas heard these words, he rose from the table and hastily left the room, going into the dark to do what he set his mind to do, accomplish and to do, not influenced by anyone else, what he decided to accomplish. You know, when the other apostles saw Judas hasten off after Jesus had spoken to him, they thought he had gone to procure something additional for the supper, or to do some errand or some other errand for the master, since they supposed he still carried the bag, which he didn't. Just know that Andrew ordered the bag from him before the supper. You know, Jesus tried everything to help Judas, you know, and as a rule only intensifies hatred and fires the evil determination to carry out the full one's own selfish projects. Will, when love is once really dead, it's merely impossible to help such an individual, for they out of free will decided to do such act. This is what happened with people today as well. When they put their mind to something because of hatred, because of what was done to them, now they want to get back to someone else, or they don't want someone else to be better and higher and greater than them. Now, the establishment of the remembrance supper. Know this, Judas has left. There are only 11 of them in the room. And the reason why Jesus spoke to Judas, Peter was there, Simon Peter was there, he was angry. This man, if he could have found out that Judas was the one who betrayed Jesus, he would have probably killed him in there and disturbed the whole Last Supper. That's why Jesus said to him and whispered to him, go and do what you set your mind to do. And he left. So there was still peace in the room. There was only 11 of them, including Jesus. No servants. Now as they brought the third cup of wine, the cup of blessings, he rose from the couch and taking the cup in his hands, blessed it, saying, take this cup, all of you, and drink it. Take this cup, all of you, and drink it. This shall be the cup of remembrance. This is the cup of blessings of the new dispensation of grace and truth. This shall be to you the emblem of the bestowal and ministry of the divine Spirit of truth. And I will not again drink this cup with you until I drink it in new form with you in the Father's kingdom. You know, the old Passover commemorated the emergence of their fathers from a state of racial slavery into individual freedom. That's what happened then with the Egyptians. Now the Master instituting a new remembrance supper as a symbol of the new dispensation wherein the enslaved individual, you yourself, emerges from the bondage of ceremonialism and selfishness into the spiritual joy of brotherhood, all as one, and fellowship of the liberated faith sons of the living God. When they finished drinking the new cup of remembrance, the Master took up the bread and gave thanks. Then after giving thanks, he broke it into pieces. Directing them to pass it around, said, take this bread of remembrance and eat it. Eat it, each one of you. I've told you that I am the bread of life, which he did on many occasions. And this bread of life is the united life of the Father and the Son in one gift. The Father and the Son in one gift. Remember that. The word of the Father as revealed in the Son is indeed the bread of life. When they had partaken of the bread of remembrance, the symbol of the living word of truth, incarnated in the likeness of mortal flesh, they all sat down. That was it. It was done. It was given to them. And every time when we use it, we must do it in remembrance of what he said. Okay, I'm going to explain some things to you now as well. There was just a procedure which I put together, which I know for a fact it is like that. It's not like it's been described in other books. Now I will explain this to you. Now, in instituting the Remembrance Supper, the Master, Jesus, Joshua, as always his habit, resorted to parables and symbols. He employed symbols because he wanted to teach certain great spiritual truths in such a manner as to make it difficult for his successors to attach precise interpretations and definite meanings to his words. In this way, he sought to prevent successive generations from crystallizing his teachings and binding down his spiritual meanings by the dead chains of tradition and dogma, indoctrination, which is happening today. In the establishment of the only ceremony or sacrament associated with his whole life mission, Jesus took great pains to suggest his meanings rather to commit himself to precise definitions. He did not wish to destroy the individual's concept of divine communion by establishing a precise form. Neither did he desire to limit the believer's spiritual imagination by formally cramping it. He rather sought to set man's reborn soul free upon the joyous wings of a new and living spiritual liberty, because he knew that the Spirit of truth, which is going to pour upon all men, will guide us them, will give them the truth. Alright? Very important. Very important. He knew that the Spirit of truth will guide them, guide us today into all truth. You know, even with Jesus' effort thus to establish this new sacrament of remembrance, those who followed after him in the interviewing centuries saw to it that his expressed desire was effectively thwarted, in that his simple spiritual symbolism of the last night in flesh has been reduced to precise interpretation and subjected to the almost mathematical precision of a set formula. Of all Jesus' teachings, none have become more traditional standardized than the Last Supper. The Supper of Remembrance, when it's partaken by those who are Son-believing and God-knowing, does not need to have associated with its symbolism of any man's puerile misinterpretations regarding the meaning of the divine presence. For upon all such occasion, the Master is really present. For upon all such occasions, when you use the Last Supper, when you use Holy Communion as we call it now, the Master is really present. Because what did he say? The Spirit of the Father and the Son is one. The remembrance is the believer's symbolic rendezvous with Jesus. When you become thus Spirit conscious, the Son is actually present, and his Spirit fraternizes with the indwelling fragment of his Father in you, the adjuster. Jesus mentioned that when you do these things, recall the life I have lived on earth among you, and rejoice that I am to continue to live on earth with you and to serve through you, because his Spirit is inside you. The Spirit of his Father is inside you. The Spirit of truth is with you. He's living through you, the fountain of life. Everything is coming out of you because you are faith sons of God. You believe in the brotherhood of all men, and you believe in the Father. All is one and one is all. Not this thing which divided us at this moment of and point of time on the planet, but things are getting better. As individuals, contend not among yourselves as to who shall be the greatest. He said that to them. Be you all brethren. And when the kingdom grows to embrace large groups of believers, Likewise should you refrain from contending for greatness or seeking preferment between such groups. And it's happening so big time today. As it grew, look what all these pastors, look what all these prophets, all these men of God, women of God, even politicians are doing. They're doing the opposite. All is well, we forgive them. It's their free will, like Judas. Now Jesus said to them, and as often as you do this, do it in remembrance of me. And when you do remember me, first look back upon my life in the flesh. Recall that I was once with you, and then by faith discern that you shall be all sometime soup with me in the Father's eternal kingdom. Have the supper with him, as he said to them, in the eternal kingdom, which is there for us. And he said also, this is the new Passover I leave with you. The new Passover I leave with you. Even the memory of my bestowal life, the word of eternal truth, and of my love for you, the outpouring of my spirit of truth upon all flesh. But you need to understand that not once did Jesus say, this is my blood, drink and remember. I'm just stopping it there. He never said, this is my body, break the bread, eat it and carry on. Paganism brought this into light to deflect us away from the truth. Because every time you do that, you basically curse yourself, because it never was said by him. The crucifixion has not happened during the supper. Nothing has happened. So you don't have to bring anything of blood or his body or that in. He never said anything of that. I will go through more recordings, more teachings about why Judas was the way he was and what he did, in a bit more detail. And then the crucifixion, what happened there, and how it was watered down, how things were added in order to deflect us from the truth. And why I said that you curse yourself when you talk of the blood of Jesus and his body in such a way. He came to do his final bestowal. He came to do what the Father asked him to do, to live a life of those which he created. Unfortunately, the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, they didn't like what he did to them. Made them out to be such big liars, which he did. John 15. Read that, you will see what he said to them. They didn't like it at all, because now he was nullifying them and taking their cultural laws and telling them how sad it is that they are following the cultural laws more than they actually follow the 10 commandments, which they are supposed to follow. But he came and he gave them a whole new revelation of the Father, that we are the sons of God. And once we just believe and have faith in his words and believe that the Father is our Father, salvation is ours. They didn't want that, because now what happens? They lost control over the people. They couldn't control the people anymore. They can't herd them into a direction to use them as they please to use them, especially ATMs. That's what a lot of people are being forced into. I thank God. I thank the angels. I thank Jesus of Nazareth, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, and all who's there with me and with all of you out there who showed this to me, that I can put this together and actually give it to you so that you can hear my perspective, the truth which I've found, and it will lead you to somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere far greater. I thank God. God bless all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember, follow, click, share with people. Even if you don't like it, share with people. There will be people who's going to love it and they're going to want more. Please leave comments and I will answer.